Hello, and welcome to the Target Individual Program. Here I am back with another video, and you know the reason why. Hashtag expose the perps. Now, like I said, every time they continue with their heavy handed coercive persuasion programming, their psyops, their subliminal messages, I'm going to do videos and continue to do my show exposing what it is that's being done. Now, before I get into what you see here on the screen, I do want to talk about some of the tactics that they use in my targeting, and which they have been doing recently. So, the last two videos that I did, I talked about some of the things that they do. Right, for example, covering their mouth with their hands like this, or they'll do this, or they'll do this as they're walking towards me. Um, and that is meant to silence me, right? It is be quiet, hush, don't say, don't talk about what they're doing to me. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not stupid, and I'm not gonna let anyone experiment on me, run a psyops program to try and discredit me and to spread rumors within my community and outside of the community and expect me to be quiet about it. That's not going to happen. I don't know about you, but for me, that would never happen. Okay? And no matter how many times they know this, they still continue because their mentality is we're going to beat you down 24/7, 365 days a year by any means necessary, and you will give up and you will stop talking about what we've done to you, what we continue to do to you. eh, You know, even if we are threatening your children, we're threatening your life, we're threatening your freedom, that eventually is going to sink into your mentality and your psyche, and you will give up. Well, let me just say this: that will never happen. Okay, and so just want to get that clear. So recently, another tactics that they have been using against me is what is called fixation drill. Now, a fixation drill, when it comes to mind control, is the repeated action or the repeated verbalization or visualization of certain things to which they do to an individual who is in a program like this, okay? Which is a mind control program to cover up the fact that I have been illegally microchipped for the purpose of remote neural monitoring. I have been the subject and victim of mind control technology like silent sound spread spectrum, as well as the microwave auditory devices that they're using to influence me and to program me subconsciously and consciously using subliminal tactics, visual and verbal. And so, one of the fixation drill, actually, before I get into that, let me just say, so when they've done with the threats against my persons, my life, my freedom, and that didn't work because I still continue to talk about what is that they've done and they're doing, then it's the threat against my life, okay? Then that didn't work because I still continue to expose them. Then it's the threat against my kids when that doesn't work and continue to talk about it. Then they will use the person closest to me or the people close to me, such as family members and the mother of my two youngest children who I'm around most of the time because I help her out with the kids. And so, we interact on a daily basis. And so one of the fixation drills they've been doing is using her to send me some sort of signal or subliminal message. So, for instance, when she walks by me or walks in front of me, she will turn her palm towards me. So, for instance, if I'm sitting like this, just as I'm facing the screen, and she walks across, she will turn her hands so that the palm of her hands will be facing in my direction. So if I look at her walking by, she will turn her palm to face towards me, or she will put it across her back like what I'm doing right now, except my palm is facing outwards. So she will continuously do that. And like I said, I noticed that whenever all the other tactics and threats doesn't work with me, then they will always resolve to that. And not just her. They particularly do this with women. So most time when this is happening to me, it is 99.9% done by women as I'm walking outside, uh, in public. And so that, because I've been studying what they've been doing over the past 15 years, as long as I've consciously become aware that this was happening to me. And so, I study a lot of the tactics. And so I kind of narrow it down in terms of what it is that they do towards me, how they do it, and when they do it. And so, like I said, so lately they've been using her to do those actions or to do that particular action in front of me. And so, and I noticed that, before she started doing that, if we're walking down the street, people will be looking at her with a strange look on their face. And that is to get my attention to place the idea or the thought that she is a part of what's being done and what's happening to me, or she knows about it, and she's participating willfully. Now, it could be true, or it could be the fact that, because I know, we're being microwaved um, inside our home. Because, for instance, when they start with the synchronization, they'll microwave us. So, for instance, there's like a strange feeling that I would get, you know. And if I look at her, if I look at my children, they're all doing hand signals. And so that's when I know that we're being microwaved inside the house. And usually when that happens, my kids have a difficult time sleeping. So have I. And I get headaches, and so do my kids start getting headaches because they'll complain to me and say, "Daddy, my head hurts." And so I know that is one of the effects of being microwave. And I'm not talking about microwave like your microwave oven. I'm talking about microwave in terms of using microwave frequencies to mimic the brain waves, okay, of a human being and instructing that human being to do certain things without their knowledge, without they even consciously be aware of it. So that's what it means when I talk about microwave. So you look up, if you Google military or non-lethal weapon or directed energy weapon, and you may not find a lot of information now, whereas I would say the last 5 to 10 years there were a tremendous amount of information when it comes to these sort of weapons on the internet. But they have done a cleanup job in terms of closing websites, deleting information online pertaining to these types of weapons. So you really have to do some dig deep in some real searching online in order for you to find any relevant information about directed energy weapons and mind control weapons and stuff like that. And so again, here we are, uh, talking about mind control again. And this website, The Forbidden Knowledge, is a very good website. Some of these websites they have very good information, and so I kind of like to reference them. Some of them are very religious and use religious theme, and I don't mind using them if the information is pertinent and is helpful, but I do not get into the religious aspect of it because I'm not religious. Okay, so there may be other who are religious who will get into those aspects of it, but I will not. But again, this website talks about mind control. Is somebody thinking for you? It's a very good read. TIs, you should definitely read it. Tells you how does mind control work. Okay, and so let me just read a part here. It says, for the protection of our basic human and constitutional rights, I hope to provide a fundamental education on the subject of mind control so that you can protect yourself and your loved ones from any individual or organization that is engaged in this kind of manipulation. Okay, and then it goes on to say Satan implement his mind control scheme on the human race, which, like I said, I don't believe in that, mumbo jumbo nonsense. But the tactics are all the same, and this website, which I haven't really touched on this. I've touched on it on my show on Talk Shoe, but I don't go into this as much as the 7 tactics of a coercive persuasion program, which is what you see here as I'm scrolling. So, the Robert J. Lifton 8-point model of thought reform, which is another important read that all TI should know about and should study, and I should go back and see if these points relate to what you're going through. Okay, and I'm sure you will find that it does. And so I wanted to, bring this to your attention. Okay, number one of the 8-point model of thought reform. Excuse me. Number one, environment control. Limitation of many all forms of communication with those outside the group. Books, magazine, letters, visits with friends and family are taboo. Okay, come out and be separate. Now as TIs they try to limit our access to information. So this is what we're talking about here. To limit any type of any communication, any type of books or websites or person who can help you deal, talk, or even develop method to help you deal with this sort of targeting. Mystical manipulation. Potential covert of groups become convinced of a higher purpose and special calling of the group through a profound encounter experience, for example, through an alleged miracle or prophetic word of those in the group. Demand for purity. The illicit goal of the group is to bring about some kind of change, whether it be on a global, social, or personal level. Perfection is possible if one stays with the group and is committed. Now, notice, in speaking of, in this context, they're talking about a cult, right? So, we are, as TI, we are outside of the cult. But, the same 8 points can be used on an individual who's outside of a group dynamics. Okay? Or the group dynamics could be the TI community in which you have perpetrators masquerading as TIs using these same 8 points model of thought reform on TIs. Okay? Number 4, cult of confession. The unhealthy practice of self-disclosure to members in the group. Could be what that could mean is that again, as an individual, to keep you contained, to not talk about what's going on, or to only talk about what's being done to you to a handler, which is somebody who's going to report back to the higher ups, or the people who have perpetrated these kind of programs, to give them information about you and your reactions to what's being done to you. Okay. Often in the context of a public gathering in the group, admitting past sins and imperfection, even doubts about the group, and critical thoughts about the integrity of the leaders. So that here itself could be done in terms of breaking up organization, such as FSCHS, which what I believe has been done to them in terms of casting doubt on the board members and causing a split among the board members to now where you have no FSCHS. Classic COINTELPRO tactic as well. Number 5, sacred science. The group perspective is absolutely true and completely adequate to explain everything. The doctrine is not subject to amendments or question. Absolute conformity to the doctrine is required. And in this part here, you have to be very careful, because sometimes when you go on some of these calls, okay, the people operating these calls want you to believe in their doctrine in terms of what they believe is happening and what's going on, and so you can't even question them. Okay, I mean, people come on my call. I only allow certain things on my call, and that's because I have a very strict show. And when people start deviating from my show, I don't condemn them, but I just let them know, hey, I have a subject in which I want to talk about on this show, and that's it. If you want to talk about something else, you can wait till I finish my recording, then you can continue on with your conversation. But I like to keep my show in a very strict, concise form. That way, it doesn't get pulled left and right, where we're talking about 10 to 20 different type of subject on one show. It just causes confusion, and it makes my show sound confusing. And that will not happen, because I know that's part of the perpetrator's plan, and so it will not happen on my call because I moderate my call. Okay. Loaded language. A new vocabulary emerge within the context of the group. Group members think within the very abstract and narrow parameters of the group doctrine. And again, we're talking in the form of cult setting here, but it does apply to us as TIs, okay? Because these 8-point model of thought reform can be used outside of a group setting, okay? The terminology sufficiently stops members from thinking critically by reinforcing a black and white mentality. And that's a very important point here, okay? It reinforces a black and white mentality, meaning you see things from one extreme to the next. There is no in the middle, right? Term loaded and cliche prejudice thinking. Another important point. Doctrine over person. Pre-group experience and group experience are narrowly and decisively interpreted through the absolute doctrine, even when experience contradicts the doctrine. So, for example, what they try to make me believe, okay, and even though my experience tell me it's not true, they will keep trying to reinforce that belief system, even though my reality says something else. Okay? And so, that's one of the things that you have to be aware of and have a keen sense of self-awareness when it comes to that, so that you don't start believing in their indoctrination or whatever it is that they want you to believe. Dispensing the existence. Salvation is possible only in the group. Those who leave the groups are doomed. So there you have it, the 8-point model of thought reform. And then it goes on to say, coercive persuasion is not a peaceful persuasion, which is not, because It is the use of threats, psychological threats, as well as physical threats, as well as the threat of financial destruction, societal destruction, and the destruction of your mind. Okay, and once they have done that, then they don't have to do anything else. They're gonna just laugh and smile at you as you walk by because they're psychopaths, and they feel happy to see when a human life has been uh, destroyed, and only psychopaths have that sort of thinking. Okay, so you gotta think of perps exactly as what they are. They're a psychopath or sociopath, or it could be they could be both. They could be both. You know, in the minds of these people, I have no doubt that they can be both. Okay, so again, this website here, you should read it, remember it, bookmark it. It is one of these sites that you will find yourself coming back to over and over again because it is very important, very telling, very informative, and for instance, this here, which is I just scrolled down to, is called the influence continuum. Okay, the control media, government, educational institutions. You know, very pertinent information that we all need to know about. We need to study. We need to acknowledge, and we need to know so that we don't continue to fall into the traps, the psychological manipulation, and we can help others in our community, and we can help those outside of our community so that they won't fall victim to this, or if they do fall victim to this, they will have the knowledge and the ability to survive and not do some of the things that these people are manipulating them to do. Okay? And so I'm going to end this video here. It's short, but I think it was very important that I do this and speak on this. I consider it part of my duty, to spread this kind of information.